Hello and welcome to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. I've got my good friend and hopefully future hunting partner, Dr. Chandler Mann here joining us. We've got a captive audience because down in Texas, you're homebound with the freeze you got going on down there. So we've got you to enlighten us with all of your insights. But first, I want to make sure that everything's okay at home with the freeze and your two little ones.
Awesome. Yeah, Aaron, thanks for having me. Yeah, everything's been great. Luckily, compared to the freeze we had here, I don't know if you remember in Snowmageddon, we called it here in 22. Yeah. Everything shut down. Everything was great here. Just basically everything shut down for 2 days. We don't do well with cold weather down in South Texas and San Antonio where I'm at. So it was good. Little ones made it through. My daughter turns 2 today, the day that we're having this podcast, January 27th, and my 5.5-month-old started daycare today. So he joined his sister first day. So maybe he'll get to sit around for her birthday festivities at school today.
Ah, that'll be fun.
It's good. New chapter. It goes really fast, man. My wife and I sat down 2 nights ago and we were just, the kids went down around like 7:30 or 8 and we just went through pictures of my daughter from when she was first, and we were like, God, it's fast. It feels like forever ago, but it's so fast. It's crazy.
Yeah. Goes by super fast. Well, and I feel you on the. I can empathize with you on the weather in San Diego. The low hit low 40s last night, and we're only hitting like 70. So
yeah,
it's we've got the North Faces out ready to go.
I know. You're living the good life right now. We pay a lot of money for that weather here. I know y'all do pay a lot of money for.
I say that sunshine tax is very real.
The weather tax is present and continuing to grow. So,
yep.
There you go.
Well, I said, hey, let's jump on and record this podcast. The impetus behind this was you had sent me a text on January 3rd. I don't know if you even remember, but it was a screenshot of your GPN dashboard.
Yep.
That showed that you hit two amazing things. Number one, in your 3rd year of practice, you hit $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of that was a over 30% jump from what your 2024 revenues were.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's crazy. And so before we get into that, because I want to hear how you did it, because I would love to see that kind of growth in a practice, in all practices. But I want to, give us a story of your practice, how you opened, where you're at, and then we'll talk about what you think you did last year that made such a difference.
Sure. And for the record, for everybody out there, I don't love talking about numbers. Aaron is a good friend and somebody I consider a mentor. So I sent that to a mentor or two of mine just because I was very, very excited. That was a lofty goal that I had for myself and our office had together for that year. So it's one thing I've learned is stopping to smell the roses is very, very important, and stopping and kind of looking at what you accomplished, whether it be, numerically, patient growth, professionally, personally, anything like that. Taking time to stop and be excited for yourself or be proud of yourself a little bit, which we're always our own hardest critics, right? So, just saying, for the record, not a big just send that to everybody guy, but to a friend or mentor or two of mine, I was happy to share the news. And you were a huge reason that I was able to attain that, whether you know it or not, from conversations we've had, but also a little bit of pieces on your podcast. I've actually talked to Chris about this too, and Chris was a big reason as well. Little things that kind of I've taken from what you guys talk about on here to, just enhance, patient care, outcomes, and growth, things like that. So,
that's awesome to hear. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So I was happy to share it with you, and unknowingly to you, probably you actually played a decent role in that with something you mentioned about contact lens evaluations and increasing the contact lens evaluations and contact lens fittings. I think that podcast was maybe last spring. Mm-hmm. I think you and I were supposed to do this. We've been talking about doing this for
a long
time. Year and a half, for a long time now, and I keep having babies. So
you do.
It's been hard.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. One of my personal goals for 2026 is to hopefully not have another baby this year. So just this year. We'll see.
Well, don't talk to Chris about that.
I know.
He's not one to help you.
He's the wrong person to talk to about that. But yeah, so. I guess the question that you were bringing up though was kind of what I did to reach that goal, or how my team reached that goal. Is that what you were talking about, or was it the growth?
No, I want to get into both those, but
Sure.
let's just help people, learn who you are. So
Yeah,
where's
yeah,
the
yeah.
practice? When did you open cold? Kind of give us the history and the who's Chandler Mann.
Yeah. So my name is Chandler Mann. Funny enough, for our Vision Source practice out there, I am from Kingwood, Texas. Grew up there. I was actually born in San Antonio. Moved there when I was about 5. My parents are both physicians. I'm back here in San Antonio now. My wife is from here. Went to University of Houston, worked at Berkeley Eye Center in Houston. It's a big ophthalmology group for a couple of years out of school. Learned a lot there. Incredible experience. Moved out here to San Antonio for some family reasons and opened a cold start practice in December, kind of mid-December of 2022, I believe that was.
Okay.
And so really kind of January 1, but if we mid-December 2022 was kind of when I opened. I was kind of contemplating a long time. I always wanted to own my own practice. That was always a goal of mine, but when to do it, how to do it, so on and so forth. Bob and Eric at Eye Care Advisors and, that whole team there was fantastic and kind of, instrumental in getting me off the ground, understanding what I'm doing. And actually, the whole process of moving to a new city, I was doing this whole process of opening this practice for like about a year while I was in Houston, but doing it in San Antonio. So that was a trying time as well. I was very, very fortunate to have an amazing GC who's one of my wife and I's very, very good friends now, him and his wife, that I didn't know at the time, but he was great to kind of help me instead of having to travel back so much to check on the office. Dr. Ellisor, Vision Source founder, is a very, very close family friend of ours. He's been a great mentor my entire life. He was one of the guys that really pushed me to start my own practice. I actually wanted to work for him out of school, and he told me, he said, "No, you need to go open your own practice." He's like, "You're not." I don't think it was because he didn't want me to work for him, but I think he wanted to give me that push because he has such an entrepreneurial spirit, and he saw that in me as well. Dr. Chip Wood and Kimberly Turner and Mario Gutierrez here in San Antonio have been awesome for kind of helping me. And I've met amazing mentors. I mean, I call you, at least quarterly to ask you some questions. I talk to Laurie Sorensen all the time, Chris, and like I said, my mentors around here. That's my favorite part about Vision Source probably is the mentorship that you can gain and just the conversations and the connections you can make. It's been awesome. So yeah, cold started December 22. I was kind of rambling there a bit, but did just like a touch over $1 million gross year one, which was amazing. We had amazing growth. We grew really rapidly. I'm in a small space, like 1,400 square feet. Started out with 1.5 staff members, and I was actually only, when I first started, for the first 3 weeks, I was working at Dr. Wood's office kind of part-time, in my office part-time. And we got so busy. Dr. Wood was awesome with this because, he was cool with me doing it, even though I'd committed for longer with him that, hey, just go ahead and go full time at your office. Cause I'd called, Bob Steinmetz and asked him when am I ready to go full time in my office? I called Glenn and we kind of came to the realization it was happening quicker than expected with the cold start, which is good. But there was a need in my area. There was a Vision Source office in our area that had sold to PE about 4 or 5 years before. So a need for kind of private care in my area was growing and they were hungry for it. And, we kind of took off and haven't looked back and have grown, staff now. I think we've got, starting year 3, I think we're at 9 staff members, team members. And I just brought on an associate, very, very good friend of mine. I'm kind of sharing him with Dr. Wood right now. He started part-time. He's about 2 days a week, started in July. So that's been really, really fun to kind of maximize my space and open an extra day and so on and so forth. So
That's cool. Let's go back to that first year when you said you had a lot of growth because I think sometimes, we get the idea that if you build it, they will come. And certainly my dad maybe was part of that generation, but I don't see that as much anymore. So there's a need, but how did you tap into that need? How did you let people know that you were there? What sort of marketing efforts did you do?
So yeah, I mean, it's, there's so many options nowadays for people. That's probably the hardest thing. I think one thing that I always had a goal of, mainly because the community I grew up in, Dr. Ellisor, although he was, obviously Vision Source, nationally, so on.
Yeah.
But in our community, he was like a pillar in our community, sponsored sports teams, sponsored schools, would always do fundraising events with the church and things like that. And so that's something that I had just like admired. I think it's really, really important to be part of a community. I grew up in the suburbs. Stone Oak and San Antonio is kind of like a suburb attached to a city type deal. And so I worked really hard. I moved to San Antonio in September of 22. It didn't open until December. So those months in between, as I was working at Dr. Wood's office 3 days a week, the other 2-3 days I was, out in the community. I was doing, vision screenings at schools. I was meeting nurses. I was meeting pediatricians. I was talking to just different physician groups, primary care practices, but a lot of things at schools, which was a big deal. And actually, I don't know how much impact this had, but I know for the first year it definitely had impact. There's like a community newsletter. And I took out an advertisement and I wrote a couple articles and stuff like that throughout there getting ready to open. And it goes to, the reason I knew it is because my in-laws live in in this neighborhood, like in Stone Oak. And it was always sitting like on my mother-in-law's, kitchen table, like every time I'd come back and visit. And then I had met the lady, her name's Gina, who owns that little paper. And everybody in the community gets it, I guess. It's a small thing. I don't know how many people look through it, but I took out like an ad in there and kind of made it recurrent and wrote some cool articles on, I have a big passion for myopia control. So talking about that and then kind of different seasonal things and disease states and stuff like that. So I think that helped. I had a lot of people tell me at the beginning that they saw me from there. A lot of kids, when I did these like career days or vision screenings, I would always give out like little squishy eyeballs or like fidget toys that are eye related. And it was pretty funny. They all told their parents they had, they were seeing the streaks of light or starbursting at night. And that actually, when I would see them, about 90% were not. But it did help catch, 10% that came. They just wanted to come back to the guy that threw them toys and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what I liked about what you just said is it's because I think we all do marketing. Yeah. But, and marketing people will kill me, but I think that there's passive marketing and there's active marketing. Right. Passive marketing is I hire somebody, we throw out a bunch of ads, maybe I spend a day in the office, shooting silly videos that then get played over the next 6 months. But not taking an ad out in this newsletter, but actively writing articles. So you're giving back, you're contributing, you're engaging a group. And I think that's probably fairly rare in our community. I think there's a lot of marketing sponsoring, but I don't think there's a lot of engaging type of marketing. So kudos to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It was quick and, I made it short and sweet, right? A couple hundred words to where it was an easy read, but, little things questions patients ask all the time, right? How do I keep my eye health? How do I keep my eye healthy? What do I need to watch out for? So on and so forth. So that was pretty cool. And I think that, the in-person stuff, meeting, just people in the community helped a ton. And when you're in a community, people love to help small businesses still in this day and age, right? The number one referral center, other than we talk all the time about MVCs, right? But the number one referral center truly for a business, a small business, is going to be word of mouth always. And if you can, provide high quality care, make a connection with every patient that walks in there and, try to give them the best experience possible. It starts at the front with the front desk and all the way to the end, right? And if you ingrain that into your staff, into your team, patients are going to see that. And people love to spread the word about a provider they really like, is something I've noticed. It comes up in circles all the time, like, oh, I've got, I'm seeing weird, or my contacts are fitting weird, or oh, my tooth hurts, or things like that. And they're like, oh, who do you see for this? And they're like, oh, he's awesome, so on. So, and we're always going to have, somebody who's not happy with us, but hopefully those are far and few between. And that's been something that's, hard to grasp sometimes for me, but
of course,
we're people pleasers. We're optometrists, so we want to make everybody happy. But that was great. I think that little newsletter played a big impact because I was pretty booked from the beginning because of that. That was a large part, at least. And then the name, Vision Source holds a lot of weight, especially in Texas. Having that branded on the door. It was funny, not to go on a tangent, but the other day, Dr. Wood had actually set up with Visionary Optics to come in and do a specialty lens fitting wet lab, right? And, I hosted it at my office. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
And, they flew down from the Bay Area, which was great, and worked on scleral lens fitting. And one of the patients I brought in, they were just like, so how did you find Dr. Mann? Just like talking to him, right? He's been one of my first patients. He's like, well, I was a Vision Source patient, in the early 2000s. And then, I didn't have anything. He's got keratoconus now, but he's like, and then, I was looking, I was like, I'm not seeing well, so on. And I needed to find a practice. And I saw that there was a Vision Source that opened up. So I went right to it. So the brand does carry quite a bit of weight, especially in Texas. And so I think that helped quite a bit too.
Nice. You stacked everything in your favor.
Yeah,
actively.
I did.
And intentionally, I like that.
Location too. One thing is pretty funny location-wise. Whenever we're working with Vision Source to open a cold start and working with eye care advisors, there's so much that goes into SEO or into not SEO, but like the geographic analysis, right, of where to best position yourself to open a practice. And it's actually funny. We had a fantastic location, but I'm next door to UPS. And UPS in suburban areas is contracted with Amazon for Amazon returns. And who does the Amazon returns primarily for families is primarily going to be the moms who also make the appointments for the kids and so on. And so I'm literally right next door to it. And I've gotten so many patients from just this little UPS that's I share a wall with because they see me right there. They're going in. And so I would advise anybody who wants to open a practice.
That's genius.
If you can do it right next door to a UPS, you're gonna attract a lot of families that, for what I do, focus a lot on myopia control, comprehensive care in general, and dry eyes as 40s, 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s parents, and then their kids too. So it was fantastic. That was lucky on my end. I didn't really know how much of an impact that would play, but that was extremely lucky.
That is lucky. You've mentioned myopia a couple times, so I just want to ask this because I think that the industry, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice right now by talking about specialists and specializing all the different dry eye specialists, myopia specialists, and when I think that we're optometrists and all of these things fall under our purview. I think some of us get excited about one over the other. I see myself as a primary care optometrist. You see yourself as a primary care optometrist. You take care of your community. So when people hear that you do a lot of myopia work, what percentage of your time in clinic is spent truly on myopia management as opposed to just routine optometry, routine eye care?
Oh gosh, maybe 5%.
Okay.
And I think that's probably accurate. Maybe even I bet you if we really ran the numbers, it might be a touch less. But I bet you it's 5%. Now it's like a foundation of my practice. It's a huge deal. It's my absolute passion. My team has a passion for it. But maybe 5%. And I mean, I've had over probably 300 over 300 kids in my myopia program. But there's so much. I hate the term specialty too now because with the access to just ease of treatment nowadays with MySight, right? It's a soft contact lens, just like any contact lens. It was Stellest out now, right? I mean, you can prescribe atropine. It's not difficult. You don't need special biometry and all this knowledge, right? You can just do the right thing, right? A kid shows up, he's myopic, put them in MySight, put them in Stellest, do whatever you want to. Treat them like you would want your kid to be treated somewhere, right? If there's something that can be preventative for your child in any form of healthcare, you're going to do it. I think just probably 5%, just because I do quarterly follow-ups, typically, at least for the first year of patients, depending on the risk level that I perceive them at.
Perfect. So I asked that question, and the number one rule of interviewing people is you don't ask questions you don't know the answer to.
Right.
And I didn't know the answer to that one, but we didn't talk about it ahead of time. But I think it's a really important point because when we sit in CE lectures, when we talk to colleagues, sometimes we get the sense that the myopia guy is doing it 90% of the time. The dry person is doing it 90% of the time. And the problem with that perception is that if I'm not at that level, I feel like I'm failing. So I love what you just said. You've talked about myopia. You talked about the passion your team has. It's foundational in your practice.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the pure time dedicated to it, 5, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, because at the end of the day, primary care optometry is about taking care of the community, as you've alluded to, and
100%.
really emphasizing the different areas. So I'm glad I wasn't asking that question didn't backfire.
No, and again, I think my answer is ballparked, but I really think like you would think it's so high because I talk about it, I lecture on it, I travel and speak on it, and I spread the good word, I talk about it to my buddies. But it's probably 5% at the end of the day. Because again, primary care optometry is where I'm at. I mean, we have a large medical focus. We have a huge dry eye clinic. I mean, enormous, and we'll get into that in a bit. But, probably 5%. But it's something that I love to do. It's my favorite 5% of the day, every day.
I love that. Since you brought up dry, what percentage do you think that you're spending in dry eye?
Cool, a lot. More for sure. I would say maybe 15% probably. Okay. On just dry evaluations, dry treatments, so on and so forth. And we built one of the things, I guess I'll get into this now, that kind of really...
Before you go on, I just want to point out, when I asked dry eye, you said a lot. Yeah. And then you said 15%.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, again, sometimes in our mind, we get this idea that a lot is like 60%, 70%, 15%. So still adding those two together, that's 80% of your time still spent in primary care, right? Not in your two main pillars and foundational drivers, which is fantastic. And that's a point that I wanted to keep harping on. I'm kind of on a little bit of a soapbox of this with our colleagues, because I think we get too hyper-focused in the air quote specialties, and we're missing what our role is, which is taking care of people in a true primary care setting. And all these things are available to us. So no, that's perfect.
I mean, you don't want to, I think I was listening to Chris earlier on like a podcast talking about how you don't want to get lost in like all these things. Like, you just treat the patient, right? As the patient. Yep. And primarily what patients are coming to us for are those comprehensive exams. Now, I think the way that our field and the world is going to shift in the next 10 to 15 years, that's going to become different a little bit. So it's good to, educate yourself on these quote unquote specialty services, which is all within our scope and standard optometry care, in my opinion. But I think, at the end of the day, people come to us for comprehensive care, and that stuff is included in comprehensive care, right? If I go to my primary care doctor and, I have, just my general blood work, but something else is going on as well, right? He's going to take care of my general blood work, make sure I'm healthy, but then also evaluate and treat the secondary problem or get me to a specialist that I need to see for that. So it's no different than that, in my opinion. I think that's our role in the medical field, is where we're at, right?
Yep. Well said.
Yeah.
So cool. So the first year, we've kind of taken a bunch of tangents.
I do that. I'm sorry. I'll take over.
No, I do too. Anybody listening is used to it. But I think they're interesting tangents. So the first year, you're kicking butt. You grow well. It's and there's nothing amazing about this. You're not in some ginormous monstrosity of a Disneyland optometry clinic, right? You're in 1,400 square feet.
I wish.
Yeah, you're right next to a UPS store, so which means parking is a premium depending on the time of day, and you've got a couple employees yourself, and in the year, very successful. Take us into year 2. I don't just recommend Peak Pro to my patients. I use it daily, and so does my whole family. Honestly, it's one of those rare products my wife and daughters all love. So much so they actually fight over who stole the tea tree cleanser, the peptide cream, or even the hyaluronic acid. I had no idea this would be the case when I introduced them to the Peak Pro products. But I've learned they're a great company to work with, and their lineup covers everything from daily eyelid hygiene to deep hydration. I highly recommend checking them out. We've got a special affiliate link in the show notes, and use code Warner for 25% off. The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo, elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia.
every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, to hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being.
Year two was we just finished year three.
Yep.
Year two was definitely growth year, and from a, I think from like a leadership standpoint, in my opinion, like from an office standpoint, finding out what our identity is. If anybody has opened a cold start practice, you have no idea what you're doing at the very beginning, and that is completely okay. And we just finished year three, and like we kind of have just figured out what we're doing on like the back end, billing, coding, all that stuff, which was a large portion of my growth for this past year. But that, how to schedule appropriately, how to build your schedule appropriately, how to, work on, time off for staff and yourself and everything, like the patient flow. Yep. So year two was still figuring it out, but year two was a very, very important time, because I think we went from just that new office to, establishing ourselves kind of in the community. I had, built a patient base that was starting to return to me, which is always fun to see. I tell them all the time. I still tell them this, even year three, wrapping up year three. Some of them I've seen the fourth time this past December, because I said we opened a little, early, mid-December of that year. And I just tell them it's such an honor that like they come back to me, right? Like it's still humbling to me that people had such a good experience that they choose to return for their annual exam and stuff like that. So that's enjoyable. But year two, we were focusing on basically figuring out what we wanted to do from like a strategic standpoint, like a frame board standpoint, from like a contact lens strategy standpoint. We were deciding what we were going to do with filling out this second room, which didn't take part until year three. And we grew our team. So somebody I hired, her name's Linda. She's now our kind of operations full office manager. And Bailey, I hired both of them the same time, kind of mid-year one. And Linda, I kind of put her in charge year two. She's worked on a lot of leadership growth over the last year and a half. But her taking on that role at the beginning of year two and starting to figure out kind of operations management and system processes, that was growing pains too. Year two was growing pains, I guess I could say. We were figuring out how to see more patients. I went from year one when I was 45-minute down to 30-minute slots and so on and so forth. And I still kept those 30 minutes year two, but we were booking out the full amount of time. And like I said, figuring out the frame board, figuring out contact lens strategies, and then basically positioning myself for where do I want to be 5-6 years from now. This is like really jumping the gun, but actually like mid-year two, I started looking at possible future leasing options or real estate options, because I knew the growth was coming, and it was still coming rapidly. I think we grew 40% year two, which was pretty crazy. over that first year, or we grew 50%. So we went from 1 million to 1.5 year two, which was, a lot of growth, right? And we hired multiple new staff members as well, like multiple team members, which was great. One thing that, I've always taken, my dad's a physician with his own practice. He just sold it. Thank God. He's finally going to retire. But a man needs a break. Him and Lori Sorensen always told me this too, is hire for where you're going to be, not for where you're at right now. And I think I have a lot of bad qualities when it comes to business ownership and leadership, but I think one of my best qualities is kind of foreseeing future, like preparing for the future and being prepared in advance. And a lot of times, you can see the growth coming before it's actually there, but it's going to be kind of that snowball, especially in the early stages of practices. So I actually hired, a couple extra team members year two, and that really helped us as we hit that hard growth that second winter when busy season came, which was great.
How did you decide when to hire you were ready? Was it a feeling? Was it an anticipation? Did you look at numbers and say, hey, I'm going to bring in a staff member for so much revenue?
Look at numbers. It's definitely a feeling. I mean, nobody knows your business better than you, right? So like you can talk to all the consultants, you can talk to all the, a big problem in our field is analysis by paralysis, I think, just in general. It's like for some reason it's a paradigm, it's a weird personality trait of optometrists is we get analysis by paralysis. And, I've made it a point to not have that, hopefully. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I try to just pick a lane, pick a goal, stick to it, and go for it. And I felt it coming. I could see on certain days that maybe, the primary two team members that I mentioned earlier, like I could see them overwhelmed a little bit, even though they would never say it to me, but I could see it. So I would regularly have kind of, breakouts with them and ask them what they need, how they feel, where do they see this going as well, kind of getting a pulse from the front as well. Because as I got busier, I wasn't up front as much, right? Like when I first opened, I'm up shaking hands, moving, shaking, filling in optical, filling in front desk, so on and so forth. Maybe we're doing some workups and things like that. And then as we got busier, I wasn't up there as much. I was pretty much ingrained in patient care. And so I relied on them to kind of let me know where they feel like our office was and where they felt like our office was going as well. So I think that helped a lot. Having people that you can trust up front that really have a pulse on your office, that helped too. And you can see, you don't want, we're always going to be overwhelmed, especially in busy seasons, just always, it's inevitable. But you don't want to lose people because you were reluctant to hire an additional hand or so on, or get them virtual help if they need it, like virtual assistants, so on and so forth. So something I have not done, I want to. I've tried and it didn't really work out, but I have a lot of colleagues who do that stuff. But
makes sense.
So that helped. That was kind of a growth year on that stage. I had my first baby, so that was a big change, kind of lifestyle-wise as well, and trying to figure out, balance that work-life balance and so on. But yeah, I think seeing what's coming helps. I was booked, like our days were full, and I could see that there was a need for really just people to help answer phones, help with patients. Somebody's up front looking for glasses, like an outside walk-in. Like you want to not only have the staff there for the patients that day, but for people that come in as well.
Right. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes complete sense. In fact, it made me think of your comment about how in optometry we, analysis paralysis. Our good friend Mick Kling has taught me that optometry and all of healthcare, for that aspect, is very interesting because in school we're taught to not take risks. You don't really want your doctor to be a gunslinger. You don't want your doctor to be risky. In fact, we probably. Not probably, we do. There's studies that show that we gather more data than necessary just because we want to make sure we're accurate.
Right.
And but then in business, if you don't take risks, you don't grow. And so we're fundamentally at odds as doctor owners. Yep. Yeah. Where in one aspect you're taught not to take risks, on the other, whoever takes the most risks tends to win. So it's an interesting conundrum we find ourselves.
And it's funny, when I was wondering what I wanted to do in life, I took all these tests and met with people, and they just told me, they were like, you would be a fantastic healthcare business owner or healthcare organizer, like in charge of a healthcare business, whether you become a healthcare professional or not. Because my nature, if anybody has, hung out with me on a Sunday or something like that, is I can get a little risky with things, and I don't really have that block to, I'm happy to take risks. I love to bet on myself. That's something I've always done. Like, I love to bet on myself. But I think in medicine, like in any type of healthcare, in medicine in general, it's great to be cautious and to, take all the analysis in, and, you don't want to have paralysis on your treatment plan, but it's good to be cautious. So it is a conundrum between the two. It's not, they don't go hand in hand. It takes a special person to have that. I'm not saying I'm a special person, but to be a business owner of an optometry clinic, like, you do have to have those two different hats that you put on. Yep. Because it's patient care and then the business ownership aspect. So I found that if you bet on yourself, like 99% of time, and I've failed for sure. I think failure has been a big part of my life. I have failed miserably at certain things, whether that be academically, in the business world, personally, and they've all helped me, create that risk profile for myself. And so I'm probably a little less risky now that I have children and a wife that depend on me than I was in the past. But it's important, thinking about future, investments into, business expansion stuff. I've actually met with our good friend Mick that you talked about this stuff and setting aside that risk profile. I've met with him a couple times over the past 2 years, thinking about growth and kind of weighing out that cost benefit analysis, that risk analysis. So
it's kind of neat when you learn who you are and where you're comfortable
I'm still
pushing,
learning
where you're
who
not.
I am too. I mean, every day, I'm changing. The more children I have, the more team members I employ, the more lives I'm responsible for. I'm definitely learning who I am more, and trying to better myself in certain aspects and enhance the things I'm already good at. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Let's bring it up to this last year, right? Year two was about leadership, and so what did you do in year three? Still in that same 400 square foot space, sharing a wall with UPS. 1,400 square foot space. Thank you. 1,400 square foot space, sharing a wall with the UPS store, and you went from 1.5 to 2 million in 1 year. What was the secret sauce here?
So one thing I was worried. I actually had met with Bob and Eric with iCare this time last year and talked about, like, how do I grow? Like, where am I going to grow? And they said, I will. They said, keep pushing. You'll get creative. And we always talk about, right, space, like constraints, show you where you can grow. Like, constraints force growth if you have that passion, you want to continue to grow. So my constraint was space, right? I mean, at this time I had like basically 1.5 lanes. I had one fully functioning lane. The other lane you couldn't really refract out of. Dr. Ellisor was very, very nice and gifted me this old Reichert manual phoropter that kind of, broke after about 2 months of using it. So year one. So that was kind of more I had a slit lamp in there, a chair, computer, all that stuff, acuity chart. But what I was doing was basically running comprehensive out of one lane. I had my own little personal office as well. And then I had that second lane for that. So we ended up bringing Dr. Lujan in July. Okay. So, but again, the preparation for growth, I knew I was going to bring somebody in. I didn't know it was going to be him, but I knew I wanted to bring somebody in at least on a part-time basis. You and I had actually discussed this a little bit in March and April at the exchange. We talked about a little bit around this. And so getting ready for the growth that I expected to happen, whether it be a new grad, whether it be somebody else who was looking for part-time, and it ended up being Dr. Lujan, which is awesome because he's one of my best friends. But that poses its own, challenges, but also rewards. But I hired a couple new team members as well. So basically, my plan was to go from a 5-day-a-week schedule to a 6-day-a-week schedule, but with me only working 4 days in clinic, especially with the coming of my second child, which was going to be in August. I did want a little bit more time at home, which I've had some stern talking tos from the wife because my time at home is probably spent more on the business than the family. So I'm working on, that's my goal for this year, is to learn how to be a better father and husband. But
good.
So I hired two new opticians, And I also hired a part-time tech as well to work. So we're now open Monday through Saturday. As we prepped for this, and then we brought on Dr. Lujan, my associate, in July to come on 2 days a week, and we expanded to that 6 days a week. Him and I had kind of met a little bit when he started, like, where can we grow this thing? How can we make this a little bit more efficient and continue this growth where I fear that we're going to stagnate? And at this time, we'd already had some growth, but I brought on dry eye technologies, right, with a couple different pieces of equipment, which have been great. What we ended up doing was I filled out that second lane with like a fully automated another TopCon lane. I actually ended up doing construction. We were doing a lot of dry eye treatments. We were getting a lot of referrals for dry eye treatments from gynecology groups, from ophthalmology groups, and patient-to-patient referrals for how successful they've been. And sometimes I'll get them in. They're not really in the category of needing the actual treatment themselves. We can just manage it in a different way. But a lot of them, did want to undergo treatment and needed treatment. So we were doing so many of them, and we were using that extra room at the time to just work there.
Right.
And that Thursday where we were off, so we were open before this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, open Friday, Saturday. Okay. Thursday, Bailey, who's my clinical director, her and I would meet up there and do dry eye treatments all Thursday when we were closed. Okay. Once Lujan joined, we ended up taking my personal little office, extending it out 2 feet, and building like a dry eye procedure suite in there.
Okay.
Where we can do all of our dry eye procedure, amniotic zest, so on and so forth in there.
Yep.
And that second lane is now fully committed, so we're able to run dry eye treatments on a daily basis all day long. Bailey's certified. She's excellent. She does the majority of them. And then Dr. Lujan and I obviously oversee that. But we are able to run full comprehensives in those other 2 lanes throughout there. So we were able to shorten our exam slot, but still be very, very effective and efficient with those exams because we had that second room now, which I did the math. We would say we would work somebody up in that non-functional room and then wait for the other room to be done and then switch them and clean it and do all that stuff.
Right.
That took about 4 minutes on average to like bring the patient out, get them switched to that new room, clean it, pull up everything they need. Right. And if we were seeing 15 comprehensives a day, right, that's a full hour that we were using just switching rooms for patients.
Yeah.
So we said at least we could bring on 3 new comprehensives a day just from getting rid of that time slot. And it ended up being more, which has been awesome for our growth. So we got creative with some construction inside the office and investing in some equipment that made us fully functional. We got our return on that investment within a month. It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
So my guess is you didn't just decide one day to go and build out a room. Right. Clearly, you did some homework. You timed it. You looked and discovered what the ROI would be, and
I did.
kudos to you on doing your homework.
I timed it perfectly to line up with my paternity leave. So it was great.
Yeah. Hey, it's planning is important.
Yes. But you're correct.
Like
yeah, we did a lot of evaluation, kind of on like cost benefit analysis, ROI. Was this going to be functional? And it was, and it was great. It's been amazing. I mean, we've been able to, I say this all the time, and it probably falls on deaf ears, but I still view it as we really serve the community. Yeah. And to me, being able to because we're in such high demand in our community, being able to open up a couple more slots a day, and then eventually, open up that full extra day, it's made people a lot happier because they're able to get in sooner, and it keeps our reputation up.
That's important. Access is important, and just timing and having them get in. What I also like that you said, and I think it's passed over, is the delegation piece.
Yeah.
Right? Because you oversee it, and I know a lot of our colleagues enjoy doing the treatments themselves.
I do too.
But now I'm going to go back because I am the numbers. I like my numbers. That's a very expensive treatment if the doctor's doing the treatment.
It is a very expensive treatment if doctors do.
And we're not charging for the cost that it takes to do that, typically. Right. And I also think that we're doing a disservice because you've talked multiple times about taking care of the community. You're responsible for your employees, your community. We're not giving opportunities for advancement if we're safeguarding all of the fun stuff and the cool stuff for us. But it doesn't take a doctor license to do the treatment. It just takes a doctor license to oversee the process happening.
Right.
So I like how you kind of glossed over it, but I think that's very important, and certainly it is to your success. You can be doing the doctoring while you've got a staff member who now is their own professional development because they went from at one point answering the phones, right? Truly taking care of the patient and doing their role in healthcare and in eye care. So I think that's a very big deal. What did it take for you to get that person or those individuals trained up and to where you're comfortable doing it, they're comfortable doing it, patients are comfortable with them doing it?
So luckily, I'm a big believer in investment in staff and team. And, I always bring a couple to the exchange. This year, they hit that 2 million goal. So the entire office is coming to Nashville. Awesome. Super excited about that. But what I have found is
that lined up perfectly on the 35th anniversary in Nashville.
It did.
There. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm so excited, hearing about all the new things that they have for our members too, that are coming out, which is going to be awesome. I'm excited for. So yeah, it's going to be great. The whole team gets to experience, a 35th anniversary celebration with the big performer Saturday night, which will be fun. But I brought them to not only exchange, but to other conferences as well. And Luminous hosts things. If you have Luminous devices, they host something called an Accelerate event, which is fantastic. If you guys ever go, or anybody who's listening goes, Celesta Ferreira in Houston, she's amazing, great friend of mine. Her and I, I've started doing it. We're up there, we're lecturing, we're teaching, talking about kind of, and Dr. Corey Lappin's been fantastic too. He's not a Vision Source member, but he's up in Ohio. We have a nice little series that we do, talking about the technology, when to treat, why to treat, how it works, how to discuss it with your patients. And I brought Bailey to a couple different events like that and have gotten her trained. And then she's, they've come in and clinically trained her quite a bit as well. And I brought her around to different offices, and I've worked a lot with her. She listens to these types of podcasts, which is pretty cool. My manager started listening to some of these podcasts, Linda, as well, about office growth and things like that. So they're invested because, I spent the time to train. I spent the time on their education. I spent the money on their education for this kind of stuff. And their comfortability level is very, very high. And patients don't even ask for me, right? They ask for Miss Bailey. It's pretty funny, right? They ask to talk to Linda because they know Linda will handle the problems, right? They know Bailey will fix their dry eyes and help their kids with their contact lenses and directing the myopia program and so on. So delegation is key. And that's something I think I'm going to teach Bailey and Linda how to do this year, is to start delegating their tasks that I don't think are probably really in their ballpark anymore, things that they can delegate safely and comfortably and let them focus on kind of the higher end stuff. So delegation is going to be like a trickling effect this year. That's one of my goals that we're working on. So
I like that, teaching leaders to then become leaders.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
I put Linda through the SLR MDP, the manager development program, which is great. She's going to do some more kind of one-on-one training with a leadership coach that I have here in San Antonio.
Okay.
Which is going to be fun to help her kind of grow in that. She's young still. She's like 27 or 28.
Nice.
But she has a lot of respect in the office and with the patients. So I'm teaching her how to, there's always room for improvement, especially when we're so young in our career.
Oh, 100%. And room for growth. I agree with you, that MDP program. I've had my second staff member's going through it right now. Yeah. And it's fantastic.
One little tidbit that I do, and Dr. Lujan actually brought this up, and he didn't really know I was already doing this, and he wants to do a couple of them himself, is we do like lunch and learns for our team.
Okay.
And we talk about why we do certain things, what disease, we'll talk about different diseases, whether it be myopia, whether it be dry eye, meibomian gland disease, whether it be glaucoma, macular, vitreous attachments, iritis, things like that. And we'll do a little lunch and learn so that everybody, whether it be the front desk, the tech, the opticians, right, the lab tech, understand why we schedule certain ways for certain patients, so it helps them with their understanding. They can look at a diagnosis and know where that needs to go in the schedule, right, for a follow-up. They can understand why we do certain treatments, why we do certain therapies, and it helps them like with their discussions with, because patients, the last person they're going to talk to is that optician, right, when you bring them in after they're comprehensive. And they're going to be asking them questions that, they might not have asked you in the room, they thought of after about certain diagnoses or certain treatment plans or follow-ups. And to have the opticians, who primarily think just glasses and contacts, but have them educated to at least be able to understand at the baseline what we're doing, why we're doing it is extremely helpful.
That's huge.
It makes your office seem very functional and that everybody's on board and everybody understands why we're doing certain things and what we're doing. So that's been very, very helpful as well, I think. Investing in team, again, is probably my number one thing that we did last year that really, really paid dividends. Whether that, I can't measure it, but I promised you it did, as you can see from the growth.
Yep. No, I think that's finding the right people and then investing in them is important.
Yeah. The first part's probably the hardest, but then when you find them, make sure you invest in them because everybody wants career growth, and we're able to offer that career growth. We just have to figure out how and why we do it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I think the hardest part. So obviously, and I agree with you. The hardest part is finding the right person. Investing in them, I don't think is super hard. I think the really hard part is letting go.
Yeah.
And as a parent, it's hard to let your kids go. The first time they get their license and now they're driving, a vehicle. And you send them off in the Suburban by themselves. Yeah. Knowing they're going to be listening to, completely inappropriate music, way too loud, and not driving like they should be with me. It's hard to do that. And I think the same thing in the office. Yeah. It's hard to let them go. But once you do, my experience is almost 100% of the time they've surprised me on how well they did.
100%. You have to, again, growth comes from constraint. And from breaking through boundaries, right? Yep. Like if we stayed at home our whole lives, we wouldn't have any experiences. We wouldn't know how to fail. We wouldn't know how to respond from failure and things like that. So you have to. I mean, my wife was, we were a wreck this morning, dropping our baby boy off first day of daycare, right? He's been sitting in my wife's arms for 5.5 straight months every day. Yeah. And it's hard. That's just, that's a piece of it, but it's you're correct. Letting go is hard.
It is. Well, and it's a great analogy because our practices are our babies.
They are.
And so you can let your wife know that while she's tied to her 5-month-old, you're tied to your practice because that is your baby. Yeah,
absolutely.
So not quite as cute, but, very much still loved.
Right.
So, no, this has been super helpful. And while we've been talking, and we could talk forever, so that just means we'll have you back. But I've written down a couple of things that have kind of come to mind. And in listening to you, Chandler, you remind me a lot of Ted Lasso. And what I mean by that is, he's great. Love the show. Can't wait for the next season. But you've not given any of the credit really to yourself. As we've talked through this, your humbleness, your curiosity, has very much come through. You're very intentional in your goals and your desires on what you want to do. And I think it's important to call that out. One, because, you deserve the credit for being a leader you are, but two, if somebody's listening to this and says, hey, I want to have similar success to what Chandler's done, this is the recipe. It's the curiosity. It's the, I quite frankly, I can't stand it when you call me a mentor because I see you as a friend, and I know. Steal from you as much as you've stolen from me. I'll say, if not more. But it's that willingness to be vulnerable and say, hey, I've got a question here, and listen to the insights, listen to the suggestions, do what you will with it, but also be willing to have somebody be vulnerable to you and say, hey, well, I've got a question on this and I'm struggling in this area, and then be free with your time and your insights and your knowledge to give back. So I think that's at least as I'm listening and as I know you, that's the secret sauce to your success, is that really that whole kind of Ted Lasso mantra of being humble, being curious, being intentional with what you're doing. You're not just, skipping through a field, hoping something good happens. And really you put the people around you first, and when they succeed, they're carrying you along with them, as opposed to you pulling them along with you.
I
hope
think
that makes sense.
It's true though. No, it does. I mean, but I feel that way genuinely, right? Like, yep. I wouldn't be where I'm at, and success isn't measured through numbers, right? Another Ted Lasso thing, right? Like you want to. I hate when the football coach of my team says this, right? Like I want wins, but he says, my goal is to set these men, these children up to become men and be the best men possible. And I get excited when somebody in my office comes to me and says, "Doctor," like there's somebody in my office currently she's been so scared. I've known she's going to do this for like 6 months, and she is just hyper intelligent, and she had a rough upbringing, right? Didn't really have much mentorship, and she came up to me. She's like, "Dr. Mann, I want to pursue. I really want to become like a DNP one day, or like an NP." And I was like, "Jackie, it's amazing. Like, I'm so excited for you, right? Like, how can I help you get there, right? Whether that be, adjusting schedule to allow you to study, right? To help you with study, anything like that, right? But you want everybody that you surround yourself with and that helps build you up on a daily basis and set your reputation in the community and with patients to have the best for themselves, right? Like I don't view them as my children, right? They're my team members, they're adults, they're their own people, but I love them genuinely, right? And you want the best for them. So I think if you can set, if you can have that mentality, it rings true. It builds loyalty for sure. I'm sure, I'll tell you, I am sure as heck loyal to them, right? And I hope that they're loyal to me on the back end, but patients see that too. I mean, my favorite thing I talk about all the time is I don't care whether in reviews they talk about me or not, right? But when they mention somebody on my team by name in a review, right? Or I'm sitting there and I have a technician named Haley. She's the most bubbly, amazing. I actually hired her from a hotel. She was in customer relations. So, she's got fantastic personality. But getting compliments on her, getting compliments on any of my team, like seeing their names in the reviews, like that makes me super happy because like they made an impact on somebody's life. And what I tell my office every day is like, we get to go to work every day. We get to get up and be in a field where we get to make an impact positively, hopefully, on somebody's life that day. And it's really, really fun because there's not a lot of fields where you're directly making impacts on people's lives. And when you can build that, mentality with people and help them understand you're not just coming here to collect a paycheck. Like you're directly impacting somebody's life. And you have two ways to do it. You can make it a miserable experience or you can make it extremely positive. And why the heck would you take the first option? Right? Make it positive. Like make the world better, right? Make our patients happier, make our community better. And if you instill that in them enough, that mindset is going to be like, what's the Stranger Things or whatever they call it, like the mind flare, or like, I don't know.
Mind flare, yeah,
whatever. But it's like it attaches to everybody, and everybody has that same mentality. So
the hive mind.
Yeah, the hive mind. That's what it is. But it's a hive mind of positive experiences and impacting people in a positive way. And genuinely, like, I mean it, because that's real. Like, I believe that we do that. And I think our field does that. And we have an opportunity, to continue to do that. Even as this AI disruption comes, people are still going to want to be impacted in a positive way. And they're still going to want to talk to people, that are going to make their days better. And we do that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add. I think that was incredibly well said.
Awesome.
So,
I mean,
even with the Stranger Things reference, which I'm bummed out that season that's over too.
Yeah, I know. All the good things are ending, but
all the good things are ending. That's right. More good things will come.
They will.
Chandler, it's amazing how fast almost an hour goes.
I know. This did not feel like. I looked up and I was like, wow, that's far too fast.
So I really appreciate you sharing me. Yeah, this is good stuff. So we'll definitely have you back. Good luck to you and your wife and kudos to you guys for surviving the first day.
Thank you.
The 5-year-old in daycare and happy birthday to your 2-year-old.
We're officially out of the 2 under 2 phase as of today. So
as of today, yes.
Yeah. About 2 hours and 59 minutes from now, or 1 hour and 59 minutes from now, my life changed for the far better when my daughter came into this world. So
that's cool.
An experience I will never forget. But
isn't that the best?
Oh my God, it's insane. Yeah, this is what I always say this. I'm going to put one little tidbit out there for people that might be listening that are thinking about opening a practice or doing something in life. It's not like having a kid, but it kind of is, right? There's never a good time to do it, so just do it. And the second you do it, when you look back in a year, 2, 3 from now, it'll be the best decision you've ever made in your life. And other than marrying my wife and my children, and the best decision I ever made in my life was deciding to take the leap and take out all the debt and open the practice. And it's been amazing to have that. And now it's set me up for a life to where I can go spend time with my family if I really want to, and it's not going to hurt me. Yeah. I got to learn how to do that, but it's at least the opportunity is at least there.
That'll be the next discussion we have, is how to peel away from this baby to hang
Thanks,
out with
buddy.
your other
I
babies.
appreciate you and obviously your friendship. And again, you are a mentor whether you like it or not. So
I appreciate you too, man.
thanks for everything, buddy. Hopefully this story was cool and can help people, figure out how to grow and set an office culture. So thanks,
absolutely.
man. I'll see you, I guess, at the end of April.
Yep,
And then hopefully you and I can get together a little bit in the fall and pull on some
make it happen.
a little bit.
Love it.
All right, buddy. Take care. Thanks.